And I'm just going to take a few more deep breaths because that was a bit of work getting sorted. Welcome, everybody, to another Essential Wellbeing's conversation here with Marc. Very honored to
How
have
are you,
Marc
Nigel?
here. How you doing, brother? Yeah, it's good to have you here. I didn't think it was going to happen, but yeah. So Marc's healing journey has been a very physical one, a journey to understand and manage ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease. Marc's journey, through this process has helped him. One of the things he's realized is that stress is a big component, and at the age of 18 years of age, around exam times, Marc had a big flare up in his with the ulcerative colitis and or the Crohn's disease, where he ended up having to lose his large intestine. And after two more operations, slowly came back to some sort of a balance, but things were never the same. Things were never quite the same after that. And Marc's journey, he's going to explain a lot about this, throughout the podcast today. But Marc's passion now is he's helping people. He's building this sort of informational portal, this sort of supportive space to really help people navigate through the gray, dark areas of this illness, these illnesses, to help them find a solid ground where things don't feel clear and there's so much information or such a lack of information, how to navigate this terrain. So Marc, thank you for being here, man. It's a real honor and a privilege to have you with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Very privileged, very thankful to be here.
Yeah, man. And I'm really curious about, it's, Crohn's disease, and, just like, I remember Crohn's and also the colitis. I think back 20 years ago, when I first, for those who don't understand, I worked as a naturopath, still do to some capacity. It's more a functional medicine these days, but about 20, maybe 22 years ago, I met my first clients who, and I was really baffled by it. I was really confronted by this anomaly of inflammation in the body. And it really, up until that point, I was cleansing with colonics, and it was really helping repair almost every sort of digestive issue. But in relation to these two bad boys, it in some cases made it worse. So it really had me trying to really understand more in depthly about this terrain of what was going on in this part of the body. And over 20 years, I'll share throughout the podcast my understanding of other ways to support the healing of that inflammation. But I'm really curious, man, like when you shared in your bio a little bit about, like, you started to know there was something wrong, but you didn't speak about it. Tell us a little bit about your childhood and about when you started to realize something just wasn't how it was supposed to be.
Yeah, I suppose I was a bit of a shy kid. I was an introvert. I was that why type of kid. I'd always ask lots of questions. I did keep to myself a lot, and I internalized a lot. I probably didn't actually learn how to release my stress or anything like that. Again, you're young, you're learning and everything, but I was fairly analytical as a kid. But in terms of my own self, absolutely not aware whatsoever. Um, I think the first time it came on, yeah, I was 14, so it is pretty young. I've unfortunately heard a lot younger than that, which is really sad to hear. They say, based on my research, they say they usually put it down to three things, and they say it could be bacteria, could be genetic, and like you said, stress. The other thing I had what I've learned is I've got an overactive immune system. So for instance, when my wife, for instance, gets a flu or something or a cold, she's, 2 weeks, and I might have given it to her, but I actually had it for 2 hours and get under the rug, bang, it's all over, and I'm good to go. And she'll get it and out cold 2 weeks. So I learned that probably was a great thing for colds and flus, but not a good thing for my gut, is my opinion. Stress is the one for me. So what happened was, for I actually reckon 6 months. I was going to the toilet and I was just bleeding as a 14-year-old, and in my stools, and I didn't say anything, thinking it's going to go away. It's going to go
Yeah.
away. It's going to go away, and it
Hey,
never
Mark,
did.
like, what was that like? Like it's very scary to
Yeah,
to see blood and to be alone with the sort of worry of it like that. I'm just curious, like, how was those 6 months of how did you just dive yourself into books, try not to think about it? Like that's a lot, because I know the amount of blood that can come out when that
yeah,
happens.
yeah. I was lucky it wasn't too much at the time.
Mhm.
It's a shame, obviously, I didn't get to it earlier. Um, but I think with me and my personality at that time, I was like, sweep it under the carpet. It will go away. She'll be right type thing. And no, it wasn't. Thankfully, after that period, I mean, I don't actually remember much of other than just sweeping it under the carpet, thinking it will go away. It'd be okay. I suppose growing up, because when I was sort of 4, 5, no, 3, my parents divorced, and I used to fly between London and Holland every
Mhm.
5 times a year. So airports were like criminal for me because it was just tears as a kid. So I think, you work out your new coping mechanisms, and mine was I'll just hide it and it will never come back. That's probably how I dealt with stuff when I was 3 years old, sort of thing. So that was probably my coping strategy. I never had anything else. But I can
Wow,
definitely understand some things were related to back when I was a child.
yeah, man. And so your parents had separated.
Yes, when I was 3, and my mum moved to Holland.
Hmm.
So I learnt Dutch as a kid. That was my first written language and everything from 3 years old. I did all my primary school in Holland. And yeah, my dad was in Holland. So I used to, it was kind of cool. I had a passport at 5 years old. I used to fly 5 times a year because it was 4 times in holidays and once on my birthday, sort of thing. But in hindsight, it was also pretty horrific for the emotional state. But you don't know that back then.
You don't know that, and every single, from irritable bowel to ulcerative colitis to diverticulitis to Crohn's disease. This the common denominator that I always see is there's some form of what you just talked about.
Right.
There's some form of holding, and of
Yep.
course you can. The people watching, you may understand a little bit about the polyvagal system. Would explain this in also more deeper sort of expanded state of awareness around the connection between your nervous system and your organs, and how
Yes.
in the limbic system of your brain, how lots is going on underneath your big analytical brain that's not being tended to. And
Yep.
often that's what I find in every case over yeah, the best part of 20 years. But wow, like I'm really feeling a little, and how you describe it, Mark, like it's horrific. Yeah, it feels horrific. It feels horrific to have separation in a family at that age, and then
Yeah.
having to move between them. And yeah, just yeah, what a privilege to travel, but what uh what a trauma to have to
Yeah.
deal with that and not know how to deal with it. I don't know what's worse, not knowing how to deal with it because maybe nobody's telling you how to deal with it because they don't know how to deal with it, or
No,
actually,
no.
it's a lot, man. Wow.
And I think also, my parents probably didn't understand how sensitive I was as a kid, because I
Hmm.
maybe didn't show it. I just internalized everything. And the other thing is, once I hit a certain age, it's like, I was going to the airport, I'm traveling sort of thing, and people say, oh, I'm kind of seeing. No, you're not. No, just stay there. I don't like airports. I don't want to say goodbyes and that. I'm just going to the airport on my own. Thanks. I don't want to go through that again. So, um, but yeah, so I definitely think I agree with you. Something at 14, my coping mechanisms was not right, and I definitely think it had to do with as a kid and my personality and how I was and everything. And you're still mending that at this age, and probably will be for a few more decades.
Yeah, it's a life's work to really get to know the self, and
Mm,
to be able to notice the places that we have held on to or blocked out or buried.
mm.
And yeah, like at times of stress, then stuff comes to the surface. Things get inflamed.
Yep.
So I'm curious about, you're smart. Like I've talked to you a few times. You seem to be very smart chap. So I'd imagine that was something you were gifted with. So here comes exam times. No matter how smart you are, it's always a stressful period. And so what happened through that period of sort of nervous system over threshold, worry, stress, strain, exams, and what started to happen in your body?
Yeah, I think also one of the big factors was traveling around. So, like I said, like for instance, even if you just take simplistically the English culture and the Dutch culture, it was kind of weird for me because um, my mum couldn't speak Dutch. So apparently I used to dream in Dutch. My whole written language is in Dutch up until, so 3 to 12 was everything Dutch. But because I analyzed a lot, you look at it, English look in the past and the Dutch are looking in the future. So there was never anything present in my life because I'm like this. So the reason I bring that up is because then we went to the Bahamas. We stayed there for 6 months because I was actually there as a kid. I was nearly born
Mm-hmm.
there. And then they went back at 12 because my dad had moved to Florida. So we moved there. So again, I had a different school. That was probably my third school. So again, chopping and changing schools, not a good
Yeah,
thing.
yeah.
Then the big shift to me, I reckon, was I came to Australia in Perth when I was 12. Now, the big thing for me there was I joined halfway through the first year of high school, which is the worst time to join because everyone's formed their friends or they know from primary school. On top of that, I'm a skinny, scrawny type kid. I've got this perfect English accent. And then I've got this Dutch in me, and I've come from the Bahamas, and everyone's going, "What the hell are you?" That sort of thing. And then, of course, you ingrain the Australian culture, and you've got, back then more macho, more this real sports type thing, physical sports, and then on top of that, you got, I went through bullying and all sorts of things. So, and I was in a school that had, oh, it was Italian, it was surfs, the guys obviously surfing on the waves and everything. And if you didn't fit into one of those, you kind of were an outcast as well. So I had a lot of problems in school. So I think that probably was that. And my previous was probably a flare up at 14. So everything there. And then I was just again like, put me up, when they ask you to come and speak in front of class, maybe if I'd have stayed in Holland, things might have gone a bit better. But gee whiz, I mean, I don't know, but you put me up in front of 20 people and that piece of paper was unreadable in my hand because my hands were shaking so much and sweating and everything. So then, come when you think of exams, everything just the internal energy that I must create would be phenomenal, I reckon, because the way I feel it and people go, oh, meditate and that. And I'm going, no, it doesn't work for me because my system just takes over. My brain can't control it. So I suppose it's a long-winded story, but that's when I got to 17, you got exams. So I had another flare, you go on different medications, managed to settle it down. But then at 19, I suppose you're also weakening your immune system, shall we say, because I was doing uni. I was studying part-time. I was doing a full-time job and I was doing something else. I was running morning shifts at McDonald's and I was eating their crap food and I was partying. I was going from from clubbing to McDonald's to do the 5 a.m. shift. I'd go home hoping to sleep and my mates would say, let's go out because they finished uni because they could do it full-time and you do that and then you go club. So the, bit of drinking, bit of the, personality of, it was like, well, because I didn't have much money, it was the old mentality of, well, I'm either going to get drunk or I'm not going to drink at all, So there's no in between with me. So that and the junk food probably led to large intestine removal at 18, 19, I'd say.
Well, let me just like I'm still sticking with a lot of us don't realize the impact of transition
Mm,
and the huge impact of arriving in high school at the time that you did, midterm or whatever. But transitions are always hard. Like they really show up later on in life. Transitions
mm,
through airports, transitions through school, transitions occupations, transitions into marriage, transitions in and out of relationships. It's a big deal, and it
mm,
really impacts the nervous system. It impacts how we relate, how we hold, how we, and again, like I'm hearing you, so I'm feeling that sort of reality in my being as I'm seeing this young man kind of trying to make his way in Australia, and then trying to fit in then later on with all the, like, not the healthiest food, not the healthiest
Nope.
lifestyle, and
Nope.
all of those things are just inflammation producers on steroids.
I know.
They be pumping the things. But walk me through the day when it went dark for you in there, like where you had to go to the hospital. Like what happened?
Yeah, I'll actually factor in one more point for you as well. So I actually got sent to a special school in Holland to eat. So I wouldn't eat, but what I would do was grab the coins from my mum, go down the road in Holland, the corner store, and get all the lollies and the what is it? What is it? The licorice, salted licorice, and other stuff. Again, probably no good at all. But I wouldn't eat my main meals and everything. So I actually went to a special school to try and teach me to eat. Luckily, they turned it around quite quickly, but I was always a bad eater. So on the day, uh, I'd been leading up to it. I'd had a lot of gut pain, a lot of gut pain. And I remember we went to the doctor, I think, that day. And I think I also remember, him saying sort of thing like, it was the worst advice ever. Go and eat some raw fruit sort of thing and raw vegetables and you'll be fine, which was the worst thing. So I did that. But also, like prior that day, I think I knew something was wrong because I got into the office and I went, man, I'm hungry. And I was a big eater, like a huge eater. And I'd already polished off my breakfast. I'd polished off another couple of pieces of toast and something else at 8 o'clock. And I got in, and then donuts came around, and I went, oh, okay. So I polished off 4 of those, and I went, no, it's still hungry. So I went and got some more, and I polished off another 8. And I was like, nah, something's not right. I'm just hungry. Like I could not, I just needed to eat. So yes, we went to the doctor there. Anyway, the next morning, I pretty much just in absolute agony. I've woken up and I couldn't even walk. I actually crawled to my mum's bedroom and said, "Take me to hospital." So we went to Royal Perth Hospital, emergency, and again, they're not up to date with diet as well because I remember they gave me fish, which was probably also not cooked right and was a bit frozen, and a pink Ensure drink. Well, what I can tell you is there was a lot of projectile going on the toilet, but it wasn't just one way; it was both ways. Pink all over the walls, and it was like, man, what is going on? And yeah, that's it. They said, nah, he's just too ulcerated. And I'm thinking, you probably shouldn't also give me that meal, like soft foods like a sweet mashed potato or something like that. The real or just a water or a drip. But no, they decided to give me that garbage, and yeah, so I had basically it was like the large intestine was coming out, the whole lot of it. And I didn't know much at the time, and it was like, just get me out of this pain sort of thing. And then I kind of lost 3 days of my life because I didn't realize I had the operation on like a Tuesday, and I woke up on sort of like a Thursday night, Friday. And I kind of didn't think anyone had come and seen me or anything. But when I looked around the room, there was cards and all sorts of stuff. But then when I did try to get up, I was like, whoa. And then the nurse is like, no, you can't get up. And I kind of looked under the sheet and I went, oh, geez, what is this? And there was just tubes everywhere. The nose, this, that, tubes all on my gut, and you're like, what on earth? And then I'm looking down and going, what is that? That was the colostomy bag, and that was my first introduction to that when it was on me. Because I don't think we got any warning that was coming. I may have got warning at 14 or 17 when I had some flares, but as a teenager, you're not taking notice. But whether I knew about it, I don't know. But yeah, that was a big shock, having a colostomy bag going, what is this?
Yeah, it's quite confront. It's a big deal at any
Yeah,
age, and it's a big deal when you're 19, 20. Like
yes,
what is this? What does this mean? How
yeah.
does this impact? There's just waves of sort of confusion and fear around. I'm imagining just the life altering reality of that. And how long was there how long were you had to be in a sort of state of convalescence? How long had you to
Yeah,
recover?
I was about I was literally about 3 to 4 weeks in hospital. One of the worst things for me was I had the good old nose tube, and it was awful to watch. But the nurses were, syringing it, and you're like looking at that, and of course that's making you even more sick. But I think it was that op or the second op. I remember one. It might have been the second op because you have 3 ops for this whole correction. But of course, you never go back to normal because you lost your large intestine. But I remember them saying, one of the nurses, the best bit of advice I got, because the doctor said, look, if he doesn't stop producing all this bile, we're going to have to operate again. I thought, are you kidding me? Anyway, all she said was, I think you should sit up more. And I thought, okay, that sounds logical. And I did. And of course, things are going down rather than lying down. And it's just like this. So it was going down. I thought, what a genius, where can I find her again, sort of thing. But
nurses,
yeah.
they're the backbone. They don't get appreciated enough. Any nurses out there, we celebrate you.
Oh, absolutely. When you find them, and the good ones, and they care and everything, and especially, like the ones that do the night shift, and you're thinking to yourself, they're coming in, because I knew the shifts and I knew all the nurses because I was in there for 4 weeks, and as you start to build up your energy, the first week you can't go anywhere because you've got your usual bedpans and all this sort of garbage, so you can't even get to the toilet after the first, because the pain is just immense. But as you start to be able to go somewhere, you get to the door of your room, and then you come back, and then the next day you might try and see if you can get to the front desk, which was right outside my room, and then you come back and you go, whoa, that was it. That was a marathon. And that was one thing you take for granted, and I always remember that. Just not just your weight, because I went down to like 55 kilos, and I'm normally about 80, 85. Just your ability to have energy, and you take it all for granted. It's just like you don't thank it, you don't be thankful for it, nothing. Just able to walk and just not have any care in the world. Even when I did get home, it took probably about 6 months to sort of 3 to 6 months to recover. Just even when I did get home, I still had to get people to get me out of bed for the first month, I think, because I'd just lie there. And of course, then you get those, fun things. Can we be a bit rude here and all that? Or
Absolutely.
so, you get the fun things. You're lying there, and this bag is blowing up, and you're like, I got to get to the toilet, but I can't get anywhere. And then just bang, you're like, yeah, too late. And you can't do much with that. It's just exploded. And they have sleep ones, but again, you learn to deal with it as you go along. But just the energy was the big one for me, how that's all been taken away from you, and you start to then appreciate every minute, every hour a lot more, for what you're going through.
Wow. Oh man, just what a period in somebody's life to be able to navigate through that. And like when you're like when you're sitting there, like the month after, 2 months after, like getting back in, like what was that 6 months after the surgery? Like what was that 6 months to a year? Like did you go back to college? Did you like could you study? Like how was that period of time in your life for connection
So
and academia and family
yeah.
and romance?
Yeah. Oh, well, that was off the cards, because I went, no way am I meeting anyone with this,
Yeah.
And clearly that's not the attitude to have. But at the time, you're young and impressionable, and people looks is everything, and your way you dress and all that, well, however you are. And it's like, yeah, that's not a good thing. And how do you explain that to someone, And they got to be pretty open with that sort of thing. So so I think after about 5 or 6 months, I managed to get back to my office. So I was working in an office then, and so that was good. They welcomed me back. The scary parts for me, at least, I was one of those people. I was just telling everyone. I wasn't hiding it, nothing. Because one of the big things is you will just be standing, and it happened a few times. You'd be standing at the, waiting to get your cup of tea, whatever. And basically, you'll just break wind because you have no control over that. and you'll just go, it's all right, it's just that, it's not me, sort of thing, because you can't control it. So of course, thankfully, it never happened on public transport, because you can't really explain it to everyone on public transport. But just simple things like that. Then your food changes. So I used to explain to people, if you think, your large intestine, however big it is, food's easy to go through there, sort of thing. But when you think you've only got your small intestine and it's connected basically to your colostomy bag, you're now looking at that. So you don't want to be eating a raw carrot or a raw nut without chewing it. Everything had to be chewed. Think of it just going small. So that was one of the first things I worked out very quick, because you would feel that thing go down. You're like, oh, geez, what's that? And it would pass. And then your next part of your small intestine, it's passed again. You're leaning this way and then you're leaning that way and going, geez, when is this coming out, sort of thing. But you learn very quickly about your diet. You learn very quickly what you can do. You learn, as I said, mine was always to be open about it. I didn't care. And that was it. So I suppose I wanted to get back to a bit of normal, wanted to catch up with my mates. A lot of my mates were pretty good. I had one of my best mates, who's unfortunately not here anymore, but he was really good. He was kind of like a bodyguard to me, because I still wanted to go out. So I'd go with him and he would just keep an eye on me, sort of thing. Because, there's always fights in pubs and clubs and Aussie sort of thing. And he'd just keep an eye on me. He goes, you're right. Yeah, you're right. And I just wanted to enjoy myself, sort of thing. And so I'm always grateful to him for that sort of thing. And I remember one time we were out and he's asked me, oh, what's wrong? I said, no, I'm all right. He goes, no, something's wrong. I said, just some idiots. They're over there calling me X, Y, Z. He said, well, who was it? And he went up to them. There were 6 of them. He was a scary looking dude. And he just punched the guy. He says, don't mess with my mate again, sort of thing. And they all just walked off, sort of thing. I didn't need him to do that, but he was just going, no, you don't need to do that crap, sort of thing. But so
That's sweet.
did I put myself in harm's way? I probably did, but you just want to have fun. You want to get a bit of normality.
It's essential to integrate back into life again,
Yeah,
if you're held in purgatory for too long, and that's that transit, that new transition into
yeah,
life,
yeah,
into living,
yeah,
gets greatly hampered. As I have some clients where they just were so held in a sort of, well, we can explain it. Purgatory seems like a good term for it, where they never ever left it. And to hear you've been able to get out there at a time where there's so many social stressors and social etiquettes and ways of being, to hear you've been able to navigate that somewhat and still get out there, and like that's a sign of character. Like that's awesome that you were able to do that.
yeah. And I did, because I also knew what I wanted to do then. Like, for instance, it was like, okay, work's work. I also knew that, nah, stuff uni, I'm not doing that part-time, and this and that is too much. So I parked uni for a while. I only did it for a year before all of that. And I knew I wanted to travel. So I'd spoken to a mate and I said, this is what we're going to do, and he's like, yeah, we're in. So that sort of stuff. But going back to your question, in the back of my mind, I knew the second and third op were coming. So the first op was completely remove the large intestine, give yourself a colostomy bag, and then they just let it sit for a while. On the second op, so you go in and again, they go through all your scars and everything. They actually give you what they call a J pouch. And basically, as I understand it back then, and I've never really looked into it any further other than, at the time and research, is the leftover skin that they had, they make an artificial sort of intestine. And that becomes your holding area for your stools and everything. And so they then make that and let that heal, because you get a lot of scar tissue. And I had a lot of problems with scar tissue, along the years. And then not long after, you have the third op, and basically that's when they remove the colostomy bag and they connect your small intestine to the J pouch, and then your J pouch is connected to the tip of what's left of your large intestine, which is to your anus, sort of thing. So you then go to the toilet like a normal person, and like you hadn't been to the toilet number 2 for 9 months. It's like, whoa, what is this sort of thing? And that whole connection happens, and then again, you then got to watch what you do as well. Did I watch what I did? Yes and no, not great, but because after a while, time's a healer and you forget the pain you went through, and you might then slip into bad habits, sort of thing. But yeah, that was the 3 ops. over a sort of 9-month period.
And of course, I'm sitting here imagining what that first moment sitting on the toilet must have felt like after 9 months of respite, and the fear of being able to allow everything to move through. And as a hydrotherapist, like talking about poop is something that's I'm very comfortable with. So
Yeah.
I hear that. I've had a few clients share with just that initial allow just that moment where things you're just waiting for everything to come through. And it's quite it's initially it's quite an abrupt procedure, and then
Yep.
whenever they go through the different steps to it there's a return to some sort of normality, but it's never quite the same after it.
No, no. And you've also got to adjust to, most people go, whatever, 1 or twice a day sort of thing, number twos. You got to adjust. You're now going 4 to 12 times a day. That's the average. Thankfully, I've always been around the 4 to 5, so I've been really lucky. But then I learn more as I watch my system and know. But 4 to 12 is basically average. So, of course, your sleep's going to be impacted if you're 12. But the big one for me was there was a bigger one before, obviously going for the first time. But I can't remember if I think it was the second op. And I remember my surgeon saying to me, and I thought it was a joke at first, but it wasn't. I looked it up and I can't remember, but he said, we go very close to, I think it was like your testicles and around your, genitals and everything. I'm like, yeah, okay. And he says, look, there's a 1% chance that you may never either have kids again or have an erection sort of thing. And I thought, what? I'm thinking I've just gone through all this and then you tell me this. And I'm like, at the time, I thought it was a joke, but it wasn't. And thankfully everything was okay and that was fine. But again, you're like, what is going on? Like it was another stressor during those operations sort of thing. So I always remember that one too.
Wow, what you don't need anything extra to deal with at that age, but yeah. So did you go traveling after that, Mark?
Yeah, well, actually, unfortunately, before I went traveling, I had another procedure. I had a kinked bowel, and that's really, really painful. So basically, the bowel just twists. And I think a lot of that was due to scar tissue. I mentioned that before. The other thing was, so unfortunately, they got to cut through all there again. They got to open you all up, and you got to go through all the recovery again. That could have been a bit of stress at the time, but also maybe I think it was actually the night before was a drinking night. Whether that was it, who knows? But that was another learning. But from there, yeah, I did go traveling. I then my mate and I, once I recovered and everything, we did 2 months in Europe backpacking and a month in the US, and then came back. So yeah, it was fantastic. Loved it. Great experience. Unfortunately, couldn't drink as much or wanted to as much as all the other guys could. Because you're just meeting more Aussies, Kiwis, South Africans as you're traveling around on buses and that. But yeah, what an experience! It was something I'll always cherish.
Yeah, and what a journey up to this point, just with your health, and
Yeah.
so walk me through the journey from there, and was there any other pivotal moments before you realized that you wanted to be able to help other people?
Yeah, lots, lots. So from there, probably another 14 years of sort of trials and tribulations with my health. One of the big ones was after I came back, I went, okay, now I want to go. So now that I've traveled, I knew I wanted to go and live in different countries. So I'd set out that I want to go. London wasn't new to me because I was born there, and but I didn't really live there at all. So I wanted to go there and live there and do other stuff. Anyway, so I got on a plane, um, got on an airplane, ate the food on the airplane, and my dad picked me up. And literally that next morning, he's following the ambulance with me in it. So I'm in the ambulance, he's following me, and we're off to emergency. I think it was Western-super-Mare in England. And so that was an experience because every other operation was in familiar surroundings. So it's like I'd go back to St John I got in Perth, and it was like, hi, I knew the nurses, I knew the doctors, yeah, this is my room, you're familiar with things. I've had 4 operations, I know what I'm doing. but that was different. I wasn't in a foreign speaking country, but I was on the NHS there. That was also an emergency. And basically I knew it was food poisoning. And I don't know why the surgeon, he said, I could see your last meal, because I told him my last meal, but he could see it, but he said he couldn't put it down to it. And I thought, are you kidding me? It was the plain food. I know it. Anyway, the big differences there were, um, the support network wasn't as big. Well, obviously, I only had my dad in the UK. I didn't have like my mum and all my friends sort of thing compared to when I was in Oz. Also, there weren't as many nurses. I actually went into ICU straight after the surgery, so I was in there for a week, and I was like, "Oh, this is interesting." I thought quite cozy, because I had foil on me, and I'm very warm, so I'm thinking, "Oh, this is pretty serious," But some of the scary things were, when you did actually get to the room, you didn't get the attention that you did, so you'd be just lying there in muck or whatever for hours, because they just didn't have the staff. They were fairly friendly and everything, but it wasn't the same as Australia just had more support at that time. Plus, St John of God was more private as well, so I was better off when Royal Perth, yes, which is a public hospital, but when I went to the private ones, because I got health insurance, obviously straight away after my first op, and then most of the time I always had stitches. And this time I woke up and I had staples, and I was like, what are staples doing there, And I'm like, and just, the foil, everything was a new experience sort of thing. They just did things a lot different. So you had to get used to it. Recovery wasn't too bad. One of the benefits was my dad and my stepmom they ate well, they ate vegetables, they ate very good food. So to this day, I still make some of those soups that they make. They were very much into their vegan diets and everything. And, that was big back then, you're talking 20 plus years ago. So that was, again, another learning. And then once I recovered, I was like, "See, Dad, I'm off." I was off to London, and I got a job, and off I went. In a lot of hindsight over the years, my jobs at the time probably weren't the best for my system. Because I worked in projects, and they always have these peaks and troughs and all that, rather than a steady sort of job. It's always stress, 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 stress. I also did contracting. So, you're always thinking, when's the end of your contract? And if the market crashes, you're like, whoa. So there's a lot of things there. Then when I came back, so I did 18 months there, loved it, had a great time. But I knew I wanted to go back. But this time I wanted to go back with someone I wanted to meet, sort of thing. And luckily enough, when I got back to Perth, literally the next night, I met someone. So I was 18 months in London, didn't really meet anyone. I met my future wife the next day in Perth, sort of thing, on a Wednesday night, sort of thing, in a club. Like, what on earth is this? So we both wanted to go to Melbourne. Perth was too small, so went there. But again, that's where I hit another snag. I was on soup and ice cream for 3 months. The gastro, the surgeon. And this is when I suppose I started that journey of going down to learning more about the natural side of things and more about other things. I understood it, but I wasn't massively open to it. But it was like, well, the gastro doesn't know what's wrong with me. The surgeon doesn't know what's wrong with me. And I'm eating soup and ice cream for 3 months, and I'm 70 kilos. And my wife's, girlfriend at the time was looking at me super stressed, going, what is going on? She was magnificent. And I'd go in for these tests, and, they do stuff like, okay, drink this and we'll come back in a few hours. Well, no, I was there for 10 hours because I had the system of an 80-year-old man, they said, sort of thing, as it's slowly going around. So lots of things were wrong. But what happened was then I came back to Perth, and I think that was the start of my journey on the natural side, because I found a naturopath, I found a homeopath. I found this guy, and he said he looks at colors, and I'm like, what is this guy talking about? Like, what do you mean he looks at colors? And he called himself a metaphysicist or something, like some real fancy word. And I was like, that sounds awesome, but what do you do? And he just looked at me, and he said to me, he says, "Oh, do you ever get a rash?" I'm like, "No, what are you on about?" And literally 48 hours later, I had that. And I'm like, well, where does this guy know about this? Like, why is that coming? Just some weird stuff happened. But it was really great to learn that. So that then was my journey to start teaching myself all those things that you've practiced and done, and that was fantastic.
Yeah, man. When your center, your center of your being, is compromised, whether it's physiologically, you know, I think our brain is way more based in there than it is in our head. And just getting to know that, getting to know your center, getting to understand, getting curious, getting help, asking for support, whatever it is like super important. I remember a time when I was in Sri Lanka and I got, I think it was salmonella, and I had a touch of ABS at the time, and I got salmonella, and it was like I got homesick for Ireland, and I wanted some oatmeal, and so they got me some oatmeal, and then I said they came with this powdered milk, and I said, no, I really need some milk, you know. And so they went off and they got a cow in the back of a pickup, and they parked up outside where I was, and they were milking this cow into their bucket, and then they would pour it into my bucket, and they were doing this for 2 or 3 weeks, and I would go in and I would drink it, and then I looked at their bucket, and it never got washed. It was just rattling around in the back of the pickup. And almost immediately, as if that was just the trigger, I was buckled. I was in pain, man, and I went from probably about 115 kilos down to 63 kilos in about 5 weeks, and just really, really ferociously impacted. You know, just really sick, really in an awful way. I thought I was going to die at one stage. Nothing could help. The doctors didn't know what to do. The voodoo guys didn't know what to do. The shamans didn't know what to do. The Ayurvedic doctors didn't know what to do. And the only thing that helped me at that time was colonics, put me on a trajectory to study that, and became a part of my occupation after that. But just as you were talking, just all the weight loss, the intense sort of physiological sort of like the pain, the fear of it, where it's just the aloneness of it all. It was, I'm really identifying as you're talking. I remember that time for me, although it wasn't as serious as what you went through, and then I feel into how it changed my life. You know, how that moment in time, which was spanned over a period of about 3.5 to almost 4 months in the jungle in Sri Lanka, it radically shifted. It just changed everything. Everything was different afterwards. I was set on a new trajectory. So anytime I hear anybody dealing with any sort of digestive issues, and to be curious the way that you've been, Mark, your life never is the same afterwards. There's a shift in starting to speak to the naturopath, starting to speak to a homeopath, and that other real interesting chap who I would probably like to have a conversation with. It just is like beautiful. You're having these. You're not just looking like this at the issue. You're taking the blinkers off, and you're being curious. And I think that's what you're helping people now with. This is what you're building. You're helping people
absolutely
take the blinkers off and be able to look at this with a broad lens. Tell us more about this.
Yeah, so I mean, that's the thing. One of the big things that's happened recently, so probably in about 2019, I took this online course because I knew I wanted to do an online business. But what did I want to do? I could do what I've been doing in business and that. And I thought, no, that doesn't light me up. And I've always been interested in this, but funny enough for me, I clearly obviously went through my midlife crisis, and most people think, fast car, this, that, and everything. Nah, mine was going down the woo-woo. So, I then embraced not just all the natural side of things and understood environments, because my wife's pretty good with having organic stuff and organic cleaning products. No, I went down the energy field. So, I did body code, I did Akashic records, I did kinesiology, there's a Therify, like a Tesla machine I've found, there's a Healy, all of it, you name it. I was just like trying it, see what it can do for me, because I was like, also the test dummy, not just for myself, but to see if it would help my wife and that. But so that sort of led to where we are today, sort of thing, where I never, because years ago, about 99, I found, when I was in London, I found the Hale Clinic, and it always stuck in my head because I went in there and I went, this is it. This is amazing. They've got, doctors, functional, holistic, integrated doctors here. And then they've got, all sorts of stuff that I'd never heard of, not just your naturopath, homeopath. They had meditation, kinesiology, all these things, and they're all working together, and I was like, this is brilliant. They're all working together. So the patient walks in and then they're going, I think you should see this person first and then this person. I thought, that's what you want. You don't want any of this, just do this and sorry, we can't help you and no one else can, sort of thing. You need more answers than that. Unfortunately, it took me to eat soup and ice cream to go down that journey, and I hope other people look at it a lot earlier. So earlier, by earlier, I mean don't have to lose a large intestine to start with, or have other operations, because Crohn's is obviously different. That can attack anywhere from the mouth, any organ from the mouth to the anus, whereas ulcerative colitis just the bowel. And really from there, it's like, okay, what do I want to do? So I'm not in the health practitioner, but I suppose what I say to people, if you want investment advice, you're going to go to a financial planner, or you're going to go to someone like Warren Buffett, who's got experience and who's a billionaire. You're going to go that way. So I suppose I'm leveraging off, hey, I've got experience, but I can understand what you're going through, but I'm not going to give you financial advice. So that's where all these health practitioners that I've been using and connecting with, like yourself, which I've been very lucky, and I can see the feedback that I've had in such a short time, with only knowing a few people, as things have grown in terms of connecting with people in this space, I can see that this is the path, because I was thinking of another course and I really only got one or two, and I thought, okay, well, that's not it. So then I'll try this, and then I'm up to about 12 people. But all those things that I mentioned, shamans, energy healers, different machines, you name it. So what I'm looking at is, I'm looking at different things, but just to start off with, I start off with a beta course, and I try and get, say, 20 members, and they can be anyone who's got Crohn's and colitis. And I would love them to, just be open to things. And I know that, no, like for me, I'm on a path of, yeah, I'll just try that, I'll try that, I'll try that. I don't care how crazy it might sound to me, my left logical brain 2 years ago, but to me now it's like, yeah, this sounds fantastic. I'm going to give this a go. Because no one's ever going to do everything that I want to put in the course. So I'm going to have like different sort of categories. Like I'll have medical, but that will be more for your, don't just stick to your gastro and your surgeon. Find a functional doctor. Find someone who's going to look at the natural side of things. Then you might have like a natural column, and you might go, okay, in here I've got interviews with people like a naturopath, a dietitian, a homeopath, and you might go, you know what, I've never been to one of those appointments, but wouldn't it be great to listen in to see what they would do with someone in my condition? And if I resonate with that, then maybe that's the person, if you can see them, otherwise you see someone in their field who I can book with. And, all these things I think do a little thing to help people get better, or they send them on the journey of, hey, you know what, this actually works. So I can balance the medical with this. And that's what it is just about broadening people's horizons. Like you said, it's this, now let's do this and see what it does for you. So that's what I'm looking at. Membership, beta members, get people in. I'll give all my experience, because then there's the other side of things. There's the personal side of things. So I can tell people what to expect. If you're going into an op or whatever, one of the things to me is calm this down, calm that mind down. The other things are, I've got a lady who's into, she's a shamanic energy healer, and we had a chat the other day. I'm going to interview her because she's a mum of her daughter who's got Crohn's, and her daughter had Crohn's at 7. So when we
Wow.
were chatting, you could see all that emotion coming up, because, as a parent, you feel completely helpless with this type of disease, absolutely. Because not only is it invisible, because you're really in the toilet or you're just in pain and you're shriveling away, but she, half the stuff she was recalling, I remember, and she understood everything I was coming from. So she said, I would love to do an interview. And she said, I got warned what to expect, but she said it didn't even touch the surface of what was about to happen. She said she had um, uh, friends or family walk out. They just couldn't cope, whether it was the kids her age of a daughter or the adults, they just didn't know what to say. And I know that because I remember sitting there and people would look at me, and you could tell in their face, they were like horrified. They're looking at you in the bed, and, so that's the other thing. Give the personal side of things from a mum, from from my own side, and then the hints and tips I got. And then, as I said, just I've done years of research and I've done years of appointments. So it's bringing it all together and going, okay, how do you want to tackle this? Where do you want to go? And hopefully people are open to it. And I just want to see a change for them, to try
Be-
something else.
Yeah, I love this, and I love it. Well, first of all, who's someone who's been in the naturopathic functional world of alternative complementary therapies for most of my life, you can get lost in that supermarket,
Mm,
and and you can lose hope when you're in that supermarket of trying this thing, trying that thing. It's one of the main problems with alternative medicine, actually, is to know what exactly works,
yep,
what exactly is what. There may not be one thing, but what would be a group of things that could be helpful. And what I'm hearing you do, what you're in the middle of developing, Mark, is really to have a space where people can, experience or feel a resonance with the practitioners that will be in the video feed or having a conversation with you. It's like it stops them being so alone with trying to find another way.
yep,
And I think that's really important when it comes to, yeah, of course, you can go to the doctor, and of course, in some ways that can be helpful, but it's really important to expand your understanding of what's possible and what other layers and levels are actually being impacted by the illness, and
yep,
to address it from each of these different levels. And it's so nice. It's so like how, like so many times I've met people with illnesses, and especially with ulcerative colitis, is to know, like, I've been around everything. Nothing seems to change it, or I've been
mm,
around and it's not worked, or like I'm fed up, I'm exhausted. Like I'm here sitting with you, Nigel, and I don't know why I'm sitting here. I'm half like, I'm not really sure anymore if I even want to. Like I'm just lost, and I
mm,
think that's the important thing with alternative medicine, is that there's a place where you can go, like what you experienced when you went to the health clinic, where you can find a place where there's professionalism, and where you can know that there's an integrated approach, where you can really feel into and listen to see what really resonates, and then move from that place. And I think that's
yep,
imperative. And like, this is amazing, man. And I hope to be on one of those videos, having a little chat and
absolutely.
sharing, which is really my passion to do with, which is the trauma, is the
Yep,
relational landscape, the behavioral landscape, the sort of struggles from childhood that then manifest physiologically throughout our lives, and in this case, pretty quickly for you at the age of 14. So just the trauma of the environment, and how we compute that, how we hold that. And I definitely do think, if you haven't read it already, Mark, check out the polyvagal therapy. I think it'll be a very interesting sort of expansive work for you to explore in more detail. Might give you some good stuff to
yeah,
follow
great.
up on. But this is amazing, man. And I just want to end as now. But before we end, Mark, I really love. Let's say somebody's watching who has Crohn's or ulcerative colitis, or any sort of digestive serious inflammation in the digestion, or they know somebody who has. What would be something that you could say to them, as they're looking at this and feeling lost or struggling in their life, not knowing what to do? What would be something you could say?
Um, oh, that's an interesting one. I think first I would say I'd break it down into a few parts. The first thing I'd say is start to analyze yourself, how you react to things. So I'll take a simple one. A couple of years ago, I'm a mad driver, like, get out of my way, blah, 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 and I love speed and all that and sort of thing. But then I'd always come across a lot of dickheads on the road, sort of thing. But when I started to understand it, I was actually attracting them, and I didn't realize that. And then when I just sort of chilled back and just drove like Miss Daisy, sort of thing, all the dickheads went away, and it was like, this is amazing. So by that I mean just to understand yourself, because how you react. So like for me, it's like, if I started to get something go wrong in my toilet or gut, I'd be like, oh no, okay, I got to get on this. I got to get on the flagyl, the ciproxon, this, that. Okay, I got to take that, change the diet, boom, boom, boom. When you start to do that, you're already in planning mode for the worst.
Mhm.
So, and I'm a planner, so that was not a good thing. So I've relaxed that right back. And it's been amazing. This has actually been the worst, most stressful time in the last couple of years for me for other reasons.
Mhm.
Um, and yet this has been the healthiest I've been, but because I've analyzed myself and what I can improve, and then
Mhm.
I've tried to work and deal with it. So the first thing I'd say is analyze yourself, And then the second thing I'd say is, look, just do what calms you down. So for some people, it's physical exercise. Other people, it's meditate. Whatever it is that just brings you down into a state of, peace and calm. And you hear people say this and everything, and you go, like this sort of thing. But until you do it, watch what your buddy does, because what you will find, and I know my toilets get better, and I start to thinking, I relax, thinking, you're thinking, so once you see that, you can then start a snowball effect of going, well, I might just keep that up. So I'm going to continue driving like Miss Daisy as one factor, it's only a minimal factor. And I'm going to continue doing this meditation. I'm going to continue doing this. And guess what? I just had this and that didn't impact me. Of course, there's still stupid things you will do. Like, my wife laughs because every 3 months I used to food poison myself, sort of thing, cooking sort of thing. But I've got better at that. And I've changed a few things around my diet, and I'd end up in bed for a week or two. But you've got to look at what you do, and how you treat this. So my advice is, look at yourself and look at how you're going to do, because there's lots of other things you can do. But that, to me, that's one of the biggest ones, is just to understand that. And if you start to understand yourself and understand how you can calm yourself, you'll be good. Because I used to sit in I've been in many patient rooms and everything, and even if there's a mixed bag or it's just all Crohn's and colitis, I could tell that a lot of them look like stressful individuals. Or I'd get chatting to them, and I'd actually ask them, I'd be, just open and say, do you stress? Do you internalize? And they go, oh, yeah. So you kind of see a pattern of the people that do have this condition, It's never usually, well, there might have been later, but it's never usually someone who's at peace with themselves and calm and all this. They're never usually the ones that have got it. But
Exactly.
I used to run to those drugs and that, and now I'm like, hang on, let's just see if we can deal with this in a different way. So yeah, that'd be my advice. And just start researching, just research other stuff and see what you're drawn to, and go from there, really.
Beautiful. Beautiful. And again, just you know, for anybody who's watching, just really, whether you're dealing with digestive issues or you're dealing with any health issues, and again, what we talk about here, any mental issues, any struggles with anything from addiction to depression and everything in between. The secret here is to, as like everything Marc was talking about was like, nervous system regulation. Slowing it down. Looking at where you're jacking it up, and see and find out ways where you can settle and soothe and slow down and be curious. And I suppose I welcome that to everybody now as we step into sort of the festive time of the year, where it's supposed to be a time of togetherness and closeness, and it also can be a time of great stress and strain and overwhelm, which can inflame every physical illness that you can imagine and every mental illness that's out there. So just everybody take care of yourself in relation to reaching out. We have links that will be here below in the feed. So please, if you're struggling with colitis or ulcerative or Crohn's, or ulcerative colitis, please send us a message and we'll hook you up with Marc. If the link isn't here, just message us. And if you're dealing with any sort of emotional or mental struggles or relational struggles, please reach out. We'll be able to help you, whether with a practitioner in your area, or we have our own crew as well. So just really know that you don't have to be alone, and you definitely don't need to be alone over this festive period. So reach out, connect, have a conversation, research. The secret here, everybody, is that we need people. And today I get blessed to be with Marc, who's, if you haven't worked it out already, has got a beautiful big heart that's been distilled through a life that's not always been easy. But look at the diamond that's come out the other end. So Marc, it's an absolute honor to be here with you, bro. And I'm sure we're going to do some more stuff together in the future. So keep shining brightly, and thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it. Love talking
Thank
to you.
you. And
Thank
again,
you.
anybody, if you felt you got any benefit from today's sort of information, please like, share, or subscribe, because it helps other people get to see what we do. And we'll be back here next week at the same time, just doing what we do. So take care, everybody. Be well. Reach out. And Marc, thank you.
See ya. Take care.
See you, my man.